Hello everyone, in this video we're going to draw a Labrador Retriever. Start by drawing a circle as a guide for the head. And an easy way to draw a circle is to first make a few small marks to indicate the circle's height. And then on the sides make a couple more small marks to indicate the circle's width. Then just connect the small marks using curved lines to finish the shape of the circle. And sketch lightly at first so that it's easy to erase if you make a mistake. And pause the video as you follow along to draw at your own pace. And you don't have to draw a perfect circle, but if you're having trouble drawing one, just trace the outer edge of a cup or a bowl or anything else with a circular edge. And just go over the circle a few more times just to get the shape right. And inside the circle, draw a long horizontal line for a construction guide. And place this line slightly higher than the center of the circle and curve it slightly so that it conforms to the shape of the circle. And the tilt of the line will determine the tilt of the head, so the more you tilt it, the higher up the head will be looking. And at the top, draw a curved vertical line for another construction guide. And draw the vertical line close to the left edge of the initial circle. And on the left side of the head, draw a big oval as a guide for the muzzle. And you can draw the oval using the small marks method too if you'd like. First make a few small marks to indicate the sides of the oval, and then connect the marks using curved lines to finish the shape of the oval. And the oval should be pretty big in relation to the head, and a big part of it on the left side will be outside of the head. And tilt the oval too so that it follows the tilt of the construction guide inside. And at the bottom, draw a short line that connects the oval to the head for the bottom part of the jaw. And on the right side of the head, draw a big triangle as a guide for the ear. So first draw a vertical line close to the right edge of the big circle, and then on the right side, draw a big angled line for the rest of the triangular shape, and this big line should be similar to a greater than sign. And the ear should be very big in relation to the head. And under the head, draw a couple of curved lines as guides for the neck. And draw the line on the right next to the ear. The shape of the neck should be pretty wide. And that's it for the guidelines. Now let's start on the final drawing. Okay, inside the head, lightly sketch two small circles for the eyes. And place the eyes on top of the horizontal construction guide and on either side of the vertical guide. And the eyes should be very close to the shape of the muzzle as well. And make the eye on the left slightly smaller and thinner because the head is turned. So that eye should be, because of the perspective, it should be slightly thinner than the eye on the right. And when you get the shapes of the eyes right, darken the lines. And as you darken the eye on the right, draw an angled line for the outer edges of the eye. And the right edge of the eye should be similar to a greater than sign, and then close off the shape on the left side by darkening the initial circle. And that'll create sort of a triangular shape for the eye. And on the bottom left side, draw a couple of short lines for the inner corner of the eye. And the inner corner of the eye should sort of point down and to the left toward the muzzle. And draw a couple of curved lines around the eye for creases on the skin. And draw the line at the top slightly higher than the eye and a bit more curved. And add another line just to emphasize the shape of the brow as well. And then darken the eye on the left. And the eye on the left won't really be visible because of the way the head is turned, so just darken the shape and add a couple of lines just to give the eye a little bit more structure. And keep the shape of the eye thin because the head is turned and you really can't see the whole eye from this angle. And on the left side, draw another curved line for the outer edge of the eye. This is technically the side of the face. that you can see, and follow the curvature of the eye as you draw this line. And now inside the eye on the right, draw a tiny circle off to the side to create a small highlight, and in the middle of the eye, draw a slightly bigger circle for the pupil. And shade in the pupil, but don't overlap the tiny highlight circle. And do the same to the eye on the left, but because it's turned, don't worry too much about adding too much detail in there. Just draw a small shape and shade it in for the pupil. And now inside the muzzle, lightly sketch a big oval for the nose. And pay attention to how big this oval is in relation to the muzzle. And draw the nose right on the top left edge of the oval for the muzzle. When you get the size and position of the nose right, darken the shape. And draw a short line near the top of the nose to separate the top from the front plane of the nose. So as you darken the sides of the oval, just curve the lines inward slightly and add a couple of small circular shapes inside and shade them in for the nostrils. And make the nostril on the left slightly thinner because of the turn of the head. And between the nostrils, draw a vertical line for a crease on the nose. And then darken the bottom edge of the nose, but make the bottom slightly pointier than the initial oval. If you've made it this far, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Now below the nose, draw a line that curves to the right for the first part of the mouth. And draw this line so that the right tip is sort of directly below the eye on the right. It should extend slightly farther out of the oval for the muzzle. And draw another curved line below the nose for the front part of the muzzle. And this will also create the other side of the lips. And below that, draw another line for the lower jaw. And sketch these lines lightly at first so that it's easy to erase if you make a mistake. And if you'd like, you can skip forward to where I darken these lines and then pause the video so that you can duplicate these lines onto your drawing. And the lower lips sort of curve and droop below the mouth, so draw a couple of curved lines on the right side to indicate that bit of loose skin. And when you do get the shapes right, darken the lines. Draw the small curved shape on the right side to create the gums that are visible because the lip is drooping down. And then darken the short line on the left side for the bit of chin that is visible below the loose lips. And near the middle of the shapes, draw another curved line for the bit of loose skin on the other side of the jaw. And above the nose, draw another long line to create the top part of the muzzle. And this line should start at the nose and then end on the tip of the eye on the left. And draw a short line next to the eye just to really separate the bridge of the nose. And now use the big triangular shape on the right side to draw the ear. So just go over the basic path of the guide, but make the sides of the shape a little bit more curved and less rigid than the initial guideline. And as always, sketch lightly at first and only darken the lines when you get the shapes right. Add a few angled lines at the top to create a furry texture on the top part of the ear. And also add a few curved lines to create the creases on the ear. Add a few extra short strokes to inside the ear to give the creases a furry texture. And now use the remaining shapes and lines as guides to draw the rest of the head. So darken the top part of the circle, but as you darken the shape, draw a couple of curved lines to create the structure of the skull. And at the top, draw a couple of angled lines for the clumps of fur on the ear that's on the other side of the head. And now along the bottom part of the head, draw a couple of curved lines for the loose skin that's on the neck. And add a few more curved lines to really emphasize the loose skin, and inside the head, draw a few more angled lines to really give the head structure. And now erase the initial guidelines to create a cleaner drawing. And you don't have to erase all of the guidelines, it's okay if you leave some behind, but if you really want to erase all of the guides that are between the final lines, you can use a thin eraser like the one I'm using, which is a Click Pen eraser. And then just darken the final lines one more time that you may have accidentally erased. And now add a bit of shading to your drawing using a medium value, and these shadows will give the figure more dimension and volume. And shade lightly at first and gradually build up to darker values. And to get darker values, you can just push down slightly harder on your pencil, or you can use pencils with higher graphite grades like I'm using right now, and I usually use 4B or 6B pencils to achieve a darker value. And I'm also using a piece of scrap paper to help protect the drawing from my hand to prevent smudging. Shade the eyes using a very light value too, but don't overlap the tiny highlight circles. Draw rows of dots below the nose to create the basis of the whiskers. And slowly and gradually add a darker value across the entire head, and use a dark value for the gums and the nose, and leave a thin strip blank on top of the nose to create a highlight. And as you shade, use strokes that go in the direction of the fur to really emphasize the texture. You can also add a light value across the entire head to really emphasize the fur. Leave the top of the head and the top of the muzzle blank to create highlights on the fur. Pay attention to the direction of the fur and also how the light and shadows affect the shapes of the fur. Also, if you have a pet dog, you can use them as reference as you shade in your drawing. And go over the final lines using a dark value one more time to really emphasize the shapes and create sort of a graphic look to the drawing. And add a few more short lines across the head to really emphasize the texture on the fur. If you'd like, you can add a bit of a background too using a light value. And shading can be time consuming, so be patient and take breaks. Keep shading until you're happy with the result. And that's it for the Labrador. Remember to pause the video to draw at your own pace. Also, please visit howtodrawanimals.com for more tutorials. That's how, and then the number 2, then drawanimals.com. If you'd like to support my channel, please consider buying my books on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description below. Let me know in the comments what other animals you want to see me draw. Don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep drawing.